Okay, so we've all got this picture of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Culture, childhood stories, maybe even just, floating around.
Mm-hmm. It feels very established, very known.
Exactly. But what if?
Mm-hmm.
What if that picture we have is just like the surface?
Yeah.
A shadow, even.
And the real substance, the really powerful stuff, got, well, pushed aside, maybe deliberately.
That's what we're digging into today.
Hmm.
This is the deep dive, and we're exploring a text called Jesus, Beyond Religion, Toward Remembrance. It offers a really, pretty radical view.
Yeah, radical is a good word. The source we're looking at talks about 10 hidden teachings.
Hidden, meaning what exactly?
Meaning it suggests they were deliberately suppressed, buried, banned, and burned is the phrase used, because they challenged the status quo, the power structures.
Oh, yeah.
But, and this is important, the text stresses this isn't about, attacking religion or just being rebellious.
Right.
It frames it as returning to the source of your own being, focusing on direct knowing, your inner light.
Returning to the source. Interesting. So this is an invitation then to question maybe, but also to remember something.
That's exactly the idea. Remembrance.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start?
Well, maybe with the most common idea.
Which is?
That Jesus came here specifically to be worshipped, put on a pedestal, separate, divine, in a way we aren't.
Yeah, the Son of God. That's the standard view, isn't it?
It is. But this hidden path, as the text calls it, says something, quite different.
Yeah.
It suggests he came not for worship, but to awaken. That he wasn't looking for followers bowing down. He wanted mirrors that remember.
Mirrors that remember. That's a powerful image.
Isn't it? And think about that famous line, I and the Father are one.
Mm-hmm. Often taken as proof of his unique divinity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this source interprets it completely differently. It says he was essentially handing you a mirror.
Handing me a mirror.
Yeah, to see that same divine spark, that same essence inside yourself. And it ties into another phrase, one you hear less often in, say, church. These things I do, you will do also, and greater.
Right. You don't hear that one emphasized much.
The book suggests why. It says, pretty bluntly, if you knew what you truly are, you'd stop kneeling and start rising.
Stop kneeling and start rising. That really shifts things. So what about all the intermediaries? Priests, rituals, the church itself?
Well, if this perspective holds, the need for them kind of dissolves, doesn't it?
It seems like it would, yeah.
The idea here is that the real gospel isn't about needing salvation from outside. It's about divine memory.
Divine memory again.
Remembering the light you came from, the kingdom you carry inside, the fire in your soul that maybe got dampened.
Okay, that leads naturally to the next big one. Heaven. Usually pictured as, what? Clouds, gates, somewhere up there after we die.
Right. A reward, a place you go to. But this text totally reframes it.
How so?
It suggests heaven isn't a place at all. It's more like a frequency or a state of consciousness.
A frequency, like tuning into a radio station.
Sort of, yeah. Or even a code hidden in your very breath. The book quotes Jesus directly. He never said the kingdom of heaven will appear when you die. He said the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Within you. And the text says that's not just a nice metaphor.
No, it presents it as mechanics, not metaphor, like the actual operating system of reality.
So if heaven is internal, a state of alignment, like the book says, a vibration, how do we access it? It mentions the door isn't in the sky.
Right, it says the door is beneath your ribs, in your spine, through your breath, in the stillness between thoughts. Much more immediate, much more embodied.
That implies it's available now, not just later.
Exactly. It's not a reward for the good, but a mirror for the awake. And it starts, the source argues, when the war in you ends.
War.
The belief that you're separate from God, the source, whatever term you use, when you stop believing that perceived separation.
Which might be why Jesus used parables, because it's hard to explain directly.
That's the idea. It cannot be explained, only experienced. It's something you realize inside yourself.
This really does turn things upside down.
Yeah.
Okay, what about sin? That's a cornerstone for many. This idea we're born, fallen, broken, needing to be saved.
Original sin. Deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
This text offers a completely different take. It says, sin was never a stain, but a forgetting.
A forgetting, like amnesia.
Exactly that. The soul isn't damned, it's just doused in amnesia. So Jesus didn't come to fix a broken thing.
He came to remind it.
Precisely, to remind you of the radiance you were born with before, as the book puts it, you were taught to look away from your own light.
Wow. And it even challenges the Garden of Eden story, Eve and the serpent.
It does. It poses a really provocative question. What if that wasn't a fall? What if it was the first act of remembering?
Whoa. So the serpent wasn't evil, but...
A symbol of awakening. And the fruit wasn't forbidden knowledge in a bad way, but consciousness, which, the text notes, has always threatened control.
Because an aware population is harder to control.
That seems to be the implication. So sin, in this light, isn't some inherent flaw. It's like a bruise from forgetting who you are.
Yeah, the bruise left by forgetting who you were. And the shadows we fear, they're just the light you haven't turned toward.
That's hopeful, actually. A very different feeling. Okay, connected to this idea of forgetting and remembering, what about reincarnation? It's mostly absent from mainstream Christianity.
Right. And the source claims that wasn't an accident. It says the church actively edited out that concept.
Edited out. Why?
Well, the text points to things like Jesus talking about Elijah returning, and it mentions early Gnostics, desert mystics. They understood the soul's journey differently.
How so?
That the soul doesn't visit Earth just once. It circles, learns, and remembers. Life isn't a one-shot deal. It's a school. The body is just a robe you change.
Okay, but why edit that out? What's the implication?
Think about it. A soul that knows it lives multiple times.
It wouldn't fear death in the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It cannot be threatened by a single death. And the text argues, a soul that cannot be threatened cannot be controlled. Control again. That makes sense. So for you listening, this suggests you're not just this one life.
You're like a library wearing skin.
Yeah.
You have history, timelines behind you. You're here now with purpose, with something to reclaim.
Okay, let's shift to a specific figure. Mary Magdalene. Her image is complicated, historically, often portrayed negatively.
Very much so, often dismissed or maligned. But this book presents her very differently, as not a prostitute, but the initiated, the one who really got Jesus, not just on the surface, but internally, deeply.
Okay, initiated. What did she teach, according to this source?
Her gospel, the Gospel of Mary, apparently taught gnosis. That's inner knowing, direct revelation, no need for a middleman.
Direct knowing again. So she was a teacher of that inner path.
Yes. Described as the keeper of the lost thread, carrying that serpent's knowing, the womb of the first memory. But the text argues,
Power structures couldn't handle that.
especially from a woman.
Precisely. They couldn't allow the sacred feminine to speak with equal light, so they buried her under lies. So if you feel drawn to a kind of wisdom outside formal religion, maybe that's her echo.
That's what the text suggests. That feeling might be her influence stirring. It calls the sacred feminine a veil, and choosing to cross it is like a vow to no longer forget.
Another big idea. This world, Earth, maybe it's not the center of everything.
Right, this text calls Earth a mirror. It says Plato knew it, mystics knew it.
And Jesus lived it.
Yeah, quoting him, this world is not my kingdom. But that's not meant as, like, a rejection of life here.
They're like remembering something
Yeah.
bigger beyond this.
Exactly. This body is a robe, this world a stage, but you are not of this world. You entered it like light hits a mirror. Everything we see is a reflection, a shadow of something. Higher, purer, truer.
You know, that feeling some people get of not quite fitting in, that sort of cosmic homesickness,
The book says that's not necessarily depression or something wrong with you.
memory leaking through.
Memory leaking through. This place, this life, wasn't meant to be the ultimate fulfillment. It's meant to awaken you.
So even the tough stuff, pain, loss, and the beautiful stuff too.
They're all just breadcrumbs, whispers, reminders that you came from light and will return as fire.
Okay, so if the world is a reflection and sin is forgetting, what's the actual enemy? We usually think of, you know, the devil, demons.
Horns and pitchforks, right.
Yeah.
This source defines the real darkness very differently. It's not external evil, but internal. Amnesia.
Amnesia again, it keeps coming back to
It's
it.
central, not possession, but disconnection. The core idea being, once you forget where you came from, you'll believe anything about where you're going.
So the goal of control wasn't physical chains.
It was to cloud your memory, to keep you from remembering your true nature. So you don't need an exorcism.
You need remembrance.
Exactly. The text argues the real fall of man wasn't disobedience. It was forgetting that you were light encoded with stars, breathed into by the infinite.
And all the distractions in modern life, social media, consumerism, political divisions.
According to this view, they're all part of the mechanism designed to keep you asleep, keep you looking outward, not inward.
Which is why Jesus pointed inward to the temple of flesh.
Right, saying the kingdom is within you. The real door isn't out there somewhere. It's inside your ribs.
This leads us right into gnosis.
Yeah.
You mentioned it with Mary Magdalene. Direct knowing.
Yes. And it's crucial to understand it's not the same as belief or following doctrine.
How does the book explain the difference?
It uses a beautiful analogy. It's the difference between reading the word water and feeling the first drops of rain on your skin.
Experience versus intellect.
Exactly. Raw, undeniable knowing. The text claims 3 key things were sort of stolen or obscured. Direct knowing, inner fire, and sovereign light.
Stolen. That's strong language.
It is, but the text also says they are now returning, that you don't need a sermon from outside.
You need remembrance from inside.
Right, which leads to a fundamental shift in questioning. Instead of asking, do I believe this? The real question becomes,
Do I remember this?
exactly. Deep down, does it resonate as truth you once knew?
But this path, it doesn't sound easy. If this truth is so powerful, it makes sense it would be hidden or resisted.
Oh, absolutely. The book is clear. Real truth isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous to the lie. It points out Jesus wasn't crucified for being nice,
He was crucified for awakening people.
for showing them their own power, their own divinity. And the text warns, when you awaken, expect pushback. Misunderstanding, mockery, rejection.
That sounds daunting.
It can be, but the book frames that pain as proof. The friction as flame, the resistance as a sign you're rising.
Okay, nearly there. Let's talk about God. The traditional image is often, well, an old man on a throne, right?
Yeah.
Separate, outside us.
Very much the external judging figure, but the mystical view here is totally different.
How so?
It says, God is not a being. God is being itself, the fundamental reality.
Being itself. So where do we find that?
Everywhere, but specifically within. The breath in your lungs, the fire in your spine, the stillness behind your eyes, that's where the source wakes up in form.
So we're not just made in God's image.
We are the expression, the echo, the current, the flame. We are the I am wearing skin, essentially.
Which means the biggest lie wasn't any specific sin, but
Separation, the illusion that we're cut off from that source. The truth is union.
and the implication of that is huge. It means we weren't made just to worship God.
We were meant to embody God, not arrogantly, but reverently, to live that divine spark.
Not to rule the world, but to...
To heal it. By awakening the divine inside ourselves, we start seeing it everywhere, in everyone else. That's how heaven starts on earth, according to this view.
Wow. Okay, so pulling all 10 of these threads together, it seems to lead to one place. If Jesus achieved this Christ consciousness, and that potential lives in us.
Then what are we waiting for? That's the question, isn't it? The text says you're not a seeker anymore, you are a returner. You're not trying to get into the kingdom, you are the presence that returns it. These teachings are like fragments of the map hidden inside you.
So all those reversals we talked about?
Yeah. Exactly. The kingdom was never in the sky, it was buried in your breath.
You were never a sinner, only a star dimmed by forgetting.
You don't need a book to find the light. You are the light.
It feels like, maybe you listening have felt this before, this call, this whisper, like you've walked this path in other times.
That's the sense. A remembrance stirring. The real fight wasn't good versus evil out there.
It was with amnesia inside.
Yes, and the Christ isn't some historical figure to idolize. It's a memory code awakening in your DNA.
Not through just believing it.
But through knowing it, through that inner gnosis, that inner flame.
So wrapping this up, the transformation offered by this source, Jesus, beyond religion toward remembrance, it's a massive shift, isn't it?
It really is. From looking outside for rules and salvation to looking inside for awakening, sovereignty, and remembrance.
Yeah.
It's explicitly not about creating followers, but about awakening sovereign beings. Not worship, but remembrance. Not earning heaven later, but realizing it now, within.
So if the journey is about remembering that inner truth, that light, what does it mean to actually live that? To embody that return?
Well, the source leaves us with a really potent question to chew on. It basically asks you.
Yeah.
The question's not who was he, but who are you becoming?
Wow. That puts it right back on us, doesn't it? So if any of this resonated, if something old felt stirred awake.
Don't just let it fade.
Yeah. The invitation is to walk in that light, to not forget again, because in the end,
You are the revelation.